I think I got it on now. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming to the April 12th Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. Today we will be hearing 3 different items. If you want to sign in, if you want to speak or give testimony to the commission, you must sign in. If you haven't signed in, please do so at this time. Anybody who is planning to give testimony today will need to be sworn in. Sheila, you want? Okay. All right. So we'll swear you in right before you give your testimony. As a meeting agenda goes, each side will have 15 minutes total. That's not 15 minutes per person, but that's 15 minutes total. So if you have more than one person who wants to speak about an agenda, you all want to get together and use your time, wisely, because you only have 15 minutes. Then the applicant will have a 3-minute rebuttal after each side is gone. Our chair is absent, so we only have 4 commissioners present today. So if you do get a split decision, the applicant is automatic. That issue is automatically deferred to the next meeting. Can I get a motion to approve last hearing's minutes?
Mr. Chair, move that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the last meeting. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. So, Jim, is there any agenda changes?
There are, we have changes in today's agenda, and I'll go through those quickly. Item number 1 on Lockwall Drive, that has been deferred. We had that on for ratification originally, but we had some opposition show up, so we have to move that off the agenda today. Item 2 at 197 Bass Road will be heard today. That's a rezoning. Number 3 will be heard today, 600 North Lamar Road. That's a conditional use. Item 4 on Fieldstone Drive and item 5, 738 Fieldstone Drive, we've moved those to ratification. Item 6 on High Street, 830 High Street, that's been moved to ratification. Item 7 at 1029 Ash Street, that has been moved to ratification. Item 8 at 3390 Pinona Avenue, that's been moved to ratification. Item 3555 Mercer University Drive, conditional use, has been moved to ratification. Item number 10, 7207 Houston Road is variance, that's been moved to ratification. Item 11 at 7690 Thomaston Road, that's a conditional use, that has been withdrawn by the applicant. Items 12 and 13 on Hydrolia Street. One is a certificate of appropriateness, the other is a conditional use. Both of those items have been deferred by the applicant to the April 26th hearing. Item 14 at 5250 Sardis Church Road, that will be heard today. And item 15, 2271 Bonner Gilbert Road, conditional use, has been withdrawn by the applicant. And that's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So do we want to begin with the first item?
Sure. First item today is item number 2, 197 Bass Road. This is a rezoning from R1 AAA, single-family residential, to C1, neighborhood commercial. This is to allow a medical and professional office and light commercial. Manisha Patel, Jenny Barfield, PE is the applicant.
Good afternoon. Oh, I promise I'm going to tell the truth.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence that you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Good afternoon. David Hollingsworth, Smith Hawkins Hollingsworth and Reeves, 688 Walnut Street, Macon, Georgia, here on behalf of Manisha Patel. We are here today for a rezoning on 5 lots at the northeast corner of the intersection of Bass and Zebulon Road. The property is currently zoned R1 AAA, and we have asked for rezoning for C1 neighborhood commercial. What we have proposed is a professional office with a cluster of 4 or 5 buildings. We have in support, we have the support of our neighbor across the street, which was Milton Hurd, and then we have in support the neighbor adjacent to our property located on Zebulon Road. When viewing the 2040 plan, we seem like we fall inside of what is contemplated. The 2040 plan calls for mixed use. It notes in the staff report that one of the lots is outside of that, but those lots have actually been legally combined. It appears that what we're asking for certainly has been contemplated, and a natural transition from a 2-road Zebulon Road to a 5-road thoroughfare now that is a corridor to 475 that has a mere 16,000 cars on it today, and another corridor, really, which is Bass Road, which feeds I-75 and currently enjoys 14,000 cars a day. So when we're looking at the 2040 plan, we feel like it's a natural transition, and we are where staff has contemplated that we would be. We did note there's one letter of opposition that came in this morning. Glenn Smith, he's very familiar with the properties up and down Zebulon Road, and he has fought the rezoning along Zebulon Road, but we have noted that, and we still think that because of the traffic and the area and the neighborhood use, that this is a zoning that should take place. I do understand that there's some reservation, and you're sensitive to restaurants. Sonny's Barbecue being the last to come before you, and I have permission from the client that we would deed restrict the C1 rezoning so that no restaurants would be allowed on our property. We have with us today, we have our engineers on hand, and we have a seller on hand, and so I'd like to leave time just for the second for the seller to come speak, and then I'd like to reapproach, and if there's any questions for the engineers, we'd like for them to be heard at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear that after you shall give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. My name's Annette Barnett. I live at 4885 US Highway 41 South in Macon, Georgia. I'm the owner, and I represent the seller of 3 of the properties that are contiguous to 197 Bass Road. Wanted to give you a little bit of history about those properties. We've owned the properties now for about 5 years, and when we purchased them, there were 2 homes on the property. The one home that I purchased at 5561 Zebulon Road had been abandoned for many years. It was a foreclosure. It was in very bad condition. Vagrants were living in the home, so I thought it was a good opportunity to increase the value of that home by making a change, so I purchased it. We also purchased the yellow house that was next door at 5581 Zebulon Road. It also had been, it was vacant. The owners had moved out of state, and then they listed the property for sale, and we purchased that. Shortly thereafter, we noticed that, again, there were vagrants who were breaking into the homes and living in the homes illegally, and we took it upon ourselves, out of our own volition and at great expense, to have the homes torn down. And we felt like that was the right decision to do. It would improve conditions at that property and make it a little better looking. Just having vacated houses being there on the property. We've also, over the years, I have entertained, or rather not entertained, many, many offers that have come in for anything from convenience stores to gas stations to car washes. And we knew, as owners of the property, that none of those were the appropriate use for that corner. And so we did not further entertain any negotiations for those offers. This property now and the development that's being proposed, we believe is an excellent use of that property. We would ask that you strongly consider approving this request. We believe that it would add value to the neighborhood and certainly elevate the opportunity with medical offices certainly being there. I know there's a lot of people that would rather drive there than have to drive all the way downtown to see their doctor. I also wanted to say briefly that I have a friend, a couple, who live on the private road directly behind this property on Wesley and View Drive. And I've talked with them about this property and this proposal, and they had absolutely no opposition to it. They would be 2 houses from this property and felt like it was also a good use of the real estate. So I will be here and available to answer any questions on the history of the property if you should need that. Thank you.
As promised, I'm reapproaching, and I have the engineers on standby if there are any questions of the commission.
Can you, okay, so initially you had said 4 or 5 buildings. The site plan that we have here, is that what you're thinking about building, or could that change?
It has not. There are 4 buildings.
Okay, all right. Any questions for?
In terms of the private road, will there be an easement or something allowed for the road to cross the property still?
I did not quite understand the question. Something about an easement?
The private road?
Yes, sir.
Will there be an easement to allow that private road still to be there?
I would think that it's not going to be. Okay.
The private road that's directly behind this property was permanently closed off many, many years ago. There's a document recorded in the county records so there's a berm, a permanent berm on the map. If you wanted to put it back up, I can show you where the permanent berm is now. That road no longer comes all the way into the corner of Bass and Zebulon. Larry Justice was the signer of that letter, so that kind of tells you how many years ago that was. But I'll point that out for you on the map. Right here, yeah, whoever's doing the pointer, that's a permanent berm right there. And so there's just a small little turnaround there, but no access. Originally, that road came all the way into the corner, believe it or not, and when the commission decided to close off that road, the property line was the driveway of this hump that was originally there that we had torn down.
It shows on the, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
It shows on the site plan that you've got access into the parcel off of Zebulon. Would that be a new curb cut?
It's a new curb cut, yes, sir.
As well as a new curb cut off of Bass Road, correct?
Yes, sir.
Have y'all had conversations with traffic engineering about the possibility of that, or the challenges with that, or?
We did have the pre-development meeting, and it was with regard to the Bass Road, so there is some chatter. And we are aware that there's some widening activity chatter on Bass Road too.
Was there any talk about a decel lane or anything like that, or was that,
No, sir.
okay. And while I got you, David, as relates to the 4 buildings in the site plan that exist now, can you give a general description of what the intended
The,
occupants may be based on the plan and the, and what the owner is looking to do at those sites?
yes, sir. The Bass Road site is a family physician doctor who will be the owner occupier.
Okay,
He already enjoys a location in Warner Robins, and so that will be his individual office on Bass Road. There is contemplated that there will be another medical office on Zebulon Road, which is that small little out parcel.
on the corner? Okay,
It is anticipated that there would be a small strip, as you can see on there, for, we don't really know, but we think there'd be some retail office use in the strip, and we are not certain what would go on the corner. But it would, we anticipate to be a single use.
how big is that, what's the plan for that building on the corner?
It's-
How many feet, James? 3,600. How many? 3,600. 3,600 feet.
Okay.
Any other questions? Is there anybody else to speak for?
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence that you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Be God, thank you. Good afternoon, my name is George Imami, and I actually represent one of the property owners in the sale of this transaction, so just full disclosure. However, I do want to emphasize some of the points that she made. The fact is that the use as currently zoned is gone. There's no economic value anymore to this corner as it was zoned previously. As y'all are probably well aware, as Zebulon Road has built up, and then even just on Zebulon Road, even closer to the interchange, or the interstate rather, the economic value of a lot of the housing in that area has begun declining just based on the commercial uses. We've had probably 100 phone calls about a gas station, a dry cleaner, or some sort of a service station of some type, and we've just on every occasion we've said, look, that's not going to go. We do think this use is a really good one. It's mostly daytime use, whereas the residential properties contiguous to it, most of these people will be gone by the time they arrive back from work during the day. It's not a 24-hour use. To me, it's a nice transitionary use going into kind of more of a residential area. So just, I'm for the project, obviously, but I think that aside, it's this particular use is one that we feel like has been vetted and is a very good applicant to come forth for this property. Thank you.
To speak in opposition. Appear that anyone else is signed in for opposition on it.
Okay. All right, discussion?
I mean, my main concern is what we talked about bringing as well. Is going to C1 instead of planned development. I think if you look at the zoning on the contiguous parcels and throughout the strip along Zebulon Road, we've preferred to do planned developments that permit the plans that we see here, and I have no problem permitting exactly what they propose, but my suggestion would be that we do it under a PDC instead of a C1.
Was that planned development commercial?
Yes.
Josh, is that,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It would allow them to, the difference would be, it would allow everything that's been submitted in this plan to happen, but it wouldn't allow anything by right thereafter. So if the plans evolve and there is an opportunity, I don't know who would hold the deed restriction, but I can't imagine whoever's holding the deed restriction is motivated to enforce it. And so I think if you want an opportunity for the neighborhood to continue to have an opportunity to weigh in on everything that would be available by right under C1, you want to go with the PDC so that everything is a conditional use. It still allows all the opportunities of a commercial district, but it would require public hearing for variances from the plan that they proposed.
Josh, could I address the point about the deed restriction?
Sure.
Obviously, when somebody buys this property and they've got to get a building permit, I mean, the deed restriction would be of record, and hopefully it would be caught at the, when the permitting, because it would be asked of that if there's any restrictions of it, and you're supposed to report it. And then even if it's not reported at that point and something starts going up, buyer beware. If it's there, you can just say, sorry, we weren't informed, and therefore we're going to have that enforced.
I guess I do have a question then. What's the downside for the owner developer, the future owner developer in doing a PDC versus C1?
Really, it's a timing issue. We're not offended by the PD. I mean, this guy, of course, I think you're trying to look down the road, and I understand it, but we're excited about this current property owner. He's been there, done that. High scale, high end, medical, across the street is going to tie in lovely, but it's a timing issue, obviously, going C1 versus PD.
Sure. I think as far as timing goes, though, we will give him everything that's on this plan.
It does appear to me that you've got enough on the site plan that you could grant our use today under the PD. And I think since it is a more restrictive rezoning than a C1 that we asked for, that I think that you could vote for the PD today, and we could be permitted for our use. I'm assuming we've got to come back for some additional drawings, Jim.
That's right. You could act today on the PDC. You don't have to wait a year. Then if you approve this plan under that PDC, then they would bring back final site plans as they build those buildings out.
Right, so with regard to our doctor's offices on Bass Road, I mean, we would be done with you with regard to that. The others are proposed uses, but we would be satisfied if we went to a PD today to have the building, the doctor's building drawn without coming before the commission. We'd have to go before the staff.
Well, that's kind of up to the commission. I mean, if today they approve the rezoning for all that property to PDC, and at the same time approve a final plan for one of the buildings, then they could leave all the final site plan details to the staff.
I'd be willing to make that motion.
So it kind of, it lessens the time factor.
Josh, we would be in agreement for that motion.
All right, great.
Can I ask one question prior to that, Josh?
Sure.
David, why is the if this is a PDC?
We're not restricted. If it's
Right.
PD.
That's the question I have. Why do you, there's no need for a deed restriction if it's PDC?
Absolutely not. I was
Okay.
just trying to help you come up with, for C1, since you're sensitive to
understand.
restaurants. And so that was my
We're
proposal.
thinking along the same, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so PD, you can have that every time we come in front of you.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
Motion?
Mr. Chairman, and Jim, help me out if I mess up. I would like to make a motion that we grant the rezoning of the parcels listed at 197 Bass Road into a planned development commercial, and issue a conditional use permit for the construction of a professional medical office as listed on the drawings, and defer to staff for the approval of final site plans for any additional development for the PDC.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the rezoning of 197 Bass Road to a planned development commercial. We also have a motion and a second to approve the conditional use of the doctor's office and with the final site plan being taken up by staff.
I have a question on the motion. Does that mean that for the other two buildings, whenever they come about, they would have to come back to the commission for approval?
That's right, and technically, the staff can't approve the site plan. You do that, and what we would do is, we would ratify the final site plan for the one building, the doctor's office. So they're not, it requires that you see it again, but we can do it under ratification, if so directed.
Jim, does that mean we've got 4 weeks, or can it be 2 weeks?
Yeah,
2 weeks?
yeah.
Okay.
Good. All right, so all in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, that's so granted.
Appreciate your consideration, thank you.
Next item is 600 North Lamar Road, conditional use to allow a multifamily housing complex in a PDE district. Joe Johnson, BFB General Partners LLC are the applicants.
Good afternoon.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence that you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Johnson. I'm here on behalf of BFB General Partners. We're a family-owned company. We're experienced with building.
Can you give me your address real quickly?
My address is 3548 North Crossing Circle, Valdosta, Georgia, 31602. So we have a lot of experience, more than 30 years, developing and building and managing all kinds of residential communities throughout the state of Georgia. We have about 100 employees spread out on these different properties. Today, I'm before you with a request for approval of a 152-unit apartment community off of Lamar Road. The address is 600 North Lamar Road. It's right beside the Kohl's Retail Shopping Center, and it's going to be a two-phase development. The first phase is we'll have 80 units, and the second phase will have 72 units. We're looking at a unit mix on the first phase of 14 one-bedroom, 32 bedroom, and 36 three-bedroom units. I've provided you with a site plan and some illustrations of the building elevations to give you a general look and feel of what we're proposing. We've got a range of amenities, including community gardens, equipped playground facilities, business centers, exercise facilities, and community rooms for both phases. I'm really just here to answer any additional questions you may have.
What's going to be phase one and what's going to be phase two?
The second sheet of your handout should include a shaded area that shows where phase one ends and phase two begins.
I didn't get a handout, but that's okay.
I would guess phase two is dependent on an additional LIDIC allocation, that you're hoping to win 9% allocations to
No.
be able to build the development?
That's a possibility, but we're actually thinking about developing the second phase as a conventional apartment community
Okay.
without LIHTC financing.
Okay.
Okay, I noticed you allowed for a bus stop, a transitory stop. Am I to assume that maybe some of these apartments will be low-income allocation?
We're going to accept tax credits for the financing of the development, so there'll be 72 units, there'll be 66 units that will be, they'll have an income limitation on them. The additional 14 units will be market rate.
Currently, is there a transit authority line already out there, or would you have to?
It's not, but I've been working with Macon Transit Authority, and they have given us a commitment to extend the bus stop to the entrance of our facility if we provide them with a turnaround for the bus. And so we've been able to work that out. I was very pleased with it.
That's what's showing on the plans.
Yes, sir. It's a 90-foot diameter.
So given that you're going to have a market rate component to the development, is all of the development entirely contingent on at least the LIDIC allocation for that initial phase?
The way it's set up now, at least for the initial phase, yes. We're going to be waiting to find out whether we're successful in obtaining that LIHTC allocation.
Is that in the 22 allocation?
It's in this current funding round, so we'll submit applications at the end of May, and we'll find out whether we were awarded financing in November of this
Okay.
year. So we could start construction as soon as, I would say, early 2022 in the spring.
Anybody to speak? Anybody else to speak? Brandon?
Give me a moment. I don't think I have anyone, but the way the sign-in sheet is on my phone is a lot different than what it looks on the computer, so. Is anyone here to speak in opposition? Nope, okay. That's the easiest way.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a conditional use at 600 North Lamar Road to allow a multifamily housing complex in a PDE district based on the submitted site plans.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve a conditional use at 600 Lamar Road to allow a multifamily housing complex. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? It's okay.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next item today is number 14. It is 5250 Sardis Church Road. This is a rezoning from agricultural to M1 light industrial. This is for a truck stop with fuel stations, convenience store, repair shop, and out parcels. Stephen Galbraith with DG Development Partners, LLC, and Carl Fisher with Foresight Group, Inc. are the applicants. And where are they?
Stanecki is the person that signed in to speak for them. David Stanecki signed in as, as being here on the.
I think they're down at the.
Yeah, I've spoken with him. He was going to have a representative here.
Yeah. David Stanecki signed in at. Yeah.
Let's call him and see where he is.
Yeah.
I'm checking.
Okay.
My point too.
40 minutes. I mean, it's not like you're running late 40 minutes. So.
Commissioners, I suggest that we adjourn for 5 minutes as we try to get in contact with the next applicant.
Thank you. Yeah, 5-minute break.
5 minutes.
I'm gonna run the register.
Not saying 5, I'm asking to speak real quick.
Right. Right. We need to wait for the applicant.
Because the applicant isn't here, and that's,
Yeah, we don't know if he's not here, or we're going to find that out.
Cal, this is Mark Sturzer with Macon-Bibb Planning and Zoning, trying to find your representative. Give me a call back at
David
478-361.
Stanicky signed in as being the applicant, but nobody's here. I mean, they signed in online.
Ray, did you say it was David? that
David
signed in?
Stanicky that signed in online, but nobody's shown up.
Cal is, the guy I spoke with this morning said David's here, should be here.
I bet he's over at the office. We have a phone number for David. Hold on. Everything I sent out showed this location.
He would have called Cal back and Cal would call me.
I don't see David signed in. Unless they're Cal Fisher.
Traffic. Well, I spoke to Cal at 9. He said he'd have someone down here by 1:30.
Oh. Okay.
David is not here. Unless he's stuck outside because of the, how many people do we have in our total? How many people do we have in our total? The maximum that we've all let in here is 25, including us.
Jim. Jim.
Okay. It's not the courthouse. Yeah, it's 700 Poplar Street. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I'll wait out front for you. What's it look like? You went down to the other office.
It was all in it clearly said on the email I sent to everybody, clearly said 700 copies.
Oh, I know. Cal just said that too. He stated they went there and that person's from 30.
Oh, mercy. Exactly.
That's what you probably asked.
Went down to the top of the station. That was side. Red.
Yeah, I mean, even then, 45 minutes is enough to get here.
Where there?
Yeah. So what are you hearing from your clients about the vaccine? Are people interested and excited, or you have?
When they went to the terminal station.
And I clearly put it on there.
I don't think
It highlighted in yellow.
he should. I don't think he should have hung them down.
It's a look at the draw, you don't know.
Yes, sir.
How long is this 5-minute delay take?
Sir, until the applicant's here, it can't be heard regardless.
I understand, but they just They just adjourned for 5 minutes to track them
Sir,
down.
they took a break. The applicant actually went to our office at the terminal station, and they've gone to he's been instructed to come up here, and they've gone out front to meet him. He should be here in the next 5 minutes.
Okay, could I ask that we get the same extension?
Sir, we're not hearing it until they give everyone the same amount per side to be heard, but they're not extending a delay, to each side.
I'm simply asking.
Sir,
that
I'm
we
telling you
get-
that the meeting hasn't started.
Okay, I'm calling the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting back into order. I do appreciate your patience, and Jim, if we could get started with the last item on today.
Call it out again. Number 14 is 5250 Sardis Church Road. This is a rezoning from agricultural to M1 Wholesale and Light Industrial District to allow a truck stop with fuel stations, convenience store, repair shop, and out parcels. Stephen Galbraith with DG Development Partners and Carl Fisher with Foresight Group are the applicants.
David Stanecki, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, everybody who's going to speak, would you just raise your right hand, please? Stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence that you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Jim, thank you. David Stanecki, Foresight Group, we're representatives of the applicant, 3740 Da Vinci Court, Peachtree Corners, Atlanta, Georgia. First of all, let me apologize to the board and the crowd. I hit default. I went to the same place that we always go to see Macon Planning and Zoning meetings, and I apologize.
That's what we thought.
Yep, I saw the building. No one was there, but it's still beautiful. We're here talking about this 30-acre property at the intersection, southwest corner intersection of I-75 and Sardis Church Road. It's across the street from the Loves and Frank Emerson Boulevard, servicing several hundred-acre tract that's owned by the Macon Industrial Authority. Yes, sir. We're requesting the rezoning from agricultural to M1 light industrial to represent, which is a similar zoning to the other four corners of this intersection of Frank Emerson. The goal for this property, when it's developed, is to become another Class A truck travel center. It's right now, the end tenant is the Travel Centers of America, TA. It is a national brand truck stop. That uses about 20 acres of the property roughly. It's a 30-acre property. We've got a fourth leg of the intersection of Frank Emerson and Sardis Church Road, and are going ahead and planning for some of the undeveloped portion of the property to be reserved for 1 acre or so out parcels. We don't have plans for what those may be today, but there's intention that they could be any community supporting ancillary uses, whether it might be restaurants or retail or office space or what have you, but what would be permitted in the M1 zoning. Right now, we're not requesting specific uses for those parcels, just knowing that they're out there. That's what the remainder of the property may be used for. There is some still undeveloped property. This plan that you're seeing on the screen has topography on it. It also shows what is represented as a hatched area that represents wetlands. There's a jurisdictional water that crosses Sardis Church and continues to travel south. That residual land, while not shown developed here, is likely very challenging to develop with the topography that's shown. So we don't have any plans for that to be developed at this time, but it is part of the existing tract. Here to answer any questions. We had our first meeting a month and a half ago. We heard some comments from those that spoke, had questions about traffic, had questions about environmental concerns, had questions about proximity of the facility. We went ahead and did a traffic impact analysis on the property. We went ahead and showed a 150-foot wide strip of preserved, we'll call it, land where we would reserve a 150-foot wide buffer that would remain as agricultural, likely, so that it would not be able to be developed in an M1 fashion. So we're reserving a strip adjacent to the existing R1 AAA zoning adjacent to us, 150 feet wide. And in some cases, it's likely wider than that due to the existing wetland area in the low-lying areas down there. And we've performed a traffic study, and I'm happy to address any questions that may come up on that traffic study. I know that was there was several questions around that. Happy to address those before I just dive straight in. With that, we request your approval of a rezoning from M1, from agricultural to M1. Thank you.
Questions? And forgive me, there's like 11 acres that you're not doing anything with at this moment in time that you still want rezoned?
The tract is 30 acres.
Okay.
The developed area, what we need for the truck stop is 20 acres roughly.
Okay.
Leaves 10 acres left. That's 11 acres. I'm being very rough with numbers now. We've reserved what's shown as 2.5 or 3.5, excuse me, acres of land of a buffer area against the R1 AAA zone, and there's 7.5 acres left. What we had communicated to the planning staff was we have no intention of developing that area today. I don't know what the market conditions are going to be in 10 years. So it's going to be undeveloped land that we intend to zone just because we're zoning the whole tract. And 10 years from now, we may come back and have a different discussion around that. But right now, there's no plans for it to be developed. I'd love to buy a 20-acre tract. There's just not one available right here at this corner.
Now, Jim, does he have to develop the whole tract? Is it one parcel, or can part of it stay agriculture and he just...
Commission's got the authority to rezone as much or as little as, or not at all. I mean, so if, they're not showing any development on that 11 acres. So if you want to exclude that, you certainly can, and leave it as agricultural. So if that's your thought, then we need to be very clear about what you're actually rezoning.
Jim, so if we rezone it today, they can come back without having to come back to the commission to build on the rest of the track?
Yeah, the truck stop itself is a permitted use.
Okay.
So once it's rezoned, then there's no more action by the commission. There won't be any more public hearings. So it would be a staff review with the other departments to get permits squared away.
The restaurant on the rest of the track, undeveloped track, they could do it without coming back?
Right, so the two out parcels that they're not showing now for any development, I mean, we certainly expect it to be developed, then those will be handled separately under separate applications. And
depending on what the use
and depending on what
is.
it is, it may come back, or if it's a permitted use, it would just be handled by staff.
In addition to not zoning that 11 acres, you also could for a PDE or PDI that
You could?
still would demand additional appearance before the commission for whatever use they sought to place on that particular differently zoned.
You could, I mean, you could say, okay, we're only going to rezone the property where it's required for the construction of the truck stop and the two out parcels, or you could leave the out parcels out. So you've got some flexibility on, how you wanted to do it. But we just need to be sure and be clear, if you get there, what's being rezoned and what's not.
One district? Are the permitted uses in a M1 district? They're found in Chapter 16, Section 16.02.
Can't hear up here.
Ask off, Randy.
These are the permitted uses in a M1 district, found in Chapter 16, Section 16.02. Additional uses for an M1 are found in 16.03. And most of the things that you would normally see in a regular commercial and retail district in an M1 are going to be conditional in the M1 district because it is geared more toward wholesale and light industrial.
Fast food and restaurant.
It's going to be a conditional use.
Okay. Is that, if they want to put like a fast food restaurant on one of the out parcels, they've got to
Come
come
back.
back to you guys as a conditional use. We had a public hearing.
Under an M1.
Or an M1, yeah.
But the permitted uses under an M1 are extensive and some would be objectionable, I think.
Office buildings, ice plants, public utility structures, automobile, travel trailer, mobile home sales, vehicle repair garages, vehicle laundries and car washes. It's got some restrictions about how far they can be from residential stuff. Drive-in restaurants, not restaurants with drive-throughs. Drive-in restaurants are a permitted use. Milk bottling and distribution plants and ice cream manufacturing plants, dry cleaning and laundry facilities, veterinary hospitals, clinics, recreation, amusement, entertainment establishments, contractors' storage and equipment yards, building and lumber supply, and then establishments for repair, assembly, or processing and light manufacturing, including confectionery, clothing and garment, laboratories for testing materials, manufacturing, assembly of scientific, optical, and electronic equipment, manufacturing of musical instruments and parts, manufacturing of souvenirs and novelties, manufacturing of toys, sporting, and athletic goods, other light manufacturing activities similar in character and type to those permitted in the subsections above, wholesale warehouses, provided that no new rail lead tracks are included, vehicle service stations, communication towers and antennas. So those are the permitted uses, and then there's a equally long list of conditional uses.
From the intent of the applicant, our intent is to develop a 17-acre travel stop. We would be open to the discussion of how we want to handle that residual property. Also open to coming back and approaching the board should that ever become redeveloped. The intent of today, and we even had this conversation when we applied for the application of moving towards an M1 zone, was because it was continuous with the M1 zone across the street for Love's and the Industrial Authority. When we look at the zoning map, a truck stop is also permitted, I think, in C3, if I'm not mistaken, or one other commercial zone. We didn't choose that because that was not, it wasn't similar to the adjacent zones. But our intention is to create a truck stop. So we can restrict what we need to restrict in the M1 zone. I know we're asking for a blanket rezoning, but that's, I have no intention of a violin shop here or an ice plant or any of those things.
Can you speak to the traffic report that you got and signal and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we spent a few weeks, collected data at this intersection, the two off-ramps lights, the light down by QT. We collected both turning movement counts as well as average daily traffic counts, ADTs, on these legs. We have a good understanding of how traffic's moving here. What that report says, what the existing traffic says, is there's a really good amount of traffic between the highway and Frank Emerson Boulevard. And then once you get past that, it starts to drop off considerably. There is a heavy amount of right turn movements traveling westbound on Sardis Church Road, making a right turn onto Frank Emerson. And similarly, reversely, a southbound left from Frank Emerson onto eastbound Sardis Church. So there's a lot of traffic moving back and forth from 75 and Frank Emerson. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. What our traffic study says and what we were asked to analyze is what happens when we show up. And we, using the Institute for Traffic Engineer trip generations, we're able to calculate what the approximate generated trips are from a facility this size in this location. That's ITE code 950. We are able to generate traffic loads, put it into our synchro model, and understand what the reaction will be. What the reaction will be, and then each intersection leg is assigned a value of A, B, C, D, or F on what the level of service is. Typically, once you get D and below, we talk that as a poor level of service. When we look at that in the build-out condition, there's as well as growth rates added into this traffic, not assuming the traffic just stays the same. There's growth rates added in. When we look at this in the build-out condition, all of the legs of traffic operate at C or above, with the exception of Frank Emerson Boulevard. The left turn out onto eastbound Sardis Church operates at a level of service of F. At that point, we decide, great, so there needs to be some sort of traffic adjustment. Now, the way that the model is set up, the Synchro software, it's designed for intersection control. So this is a stop-controlled intersection. It distributes the traffic in a distributed way. So you have 60 cars an hour, you get one every minute. What we see in real life is oftentimes coming from the signals at the off-ramps is that there'll be platooning. The green light goes up, 10 cars go through, the red light shuts down, there's a big gap. I say that because the left turn out of Frank Emerson is going to operate at a level of service of F, or that's what the model shows. It's because that's because it's controlled by a stop sign. You wait for a clear space, you pull out when there's a clear space. The amount of traffic volume that is on Sardis Church, as well as the additional generated volume from this side, the volume from this side will, we have 95% of the traffic coming from I-75 into this site, and 95% going back to 75, very little coming from the westbound side. Because all of our traffic will be making left turns into our site, that takes away the gaps that are there currently for those truck drivers on Frank Emerson to make the left out onto Sardis Church. So there's a conflict point. So the level of service F that shows up at Frank Emerson is because they can't turn out anymore, because there's cars turning left into our site now. From there, we start talking about what the traffic mitigation opportunities can be. Do we prevent left turns? Do we add a signal? Do we turn it into a roundabout? There's many different traffic mitigation efforts. Is it a reduced U-turn, an R-cut, reduced conflict U-turn? And we were asked by the staff to analyze what a signal would look like. We ran signal warrants, and those are generated by MUTCD. There's warrants for pedestrians, there's warrants for peak hours. You have a business that lets out 10,000 employees at 5 o'clock. There's different kind of traffic signal warrants. The warrant that is most common that we look at is warrant 1, and there's different conditions in warrant 1. And warrant 1 is a traditional 8-hour warrant. The intent, GDOT, asks for 100% warrants. It gets into some technical engineering stuff, but 100% warrants for conditions A, B, or A and B, and those are different percentages of how traffic are released. But in the existing condition, none of those warrants are met for a traffic signal. It's because there's not enough traffic, again, per the model, there's not enough traffic on Sardis Church Road for the folks on Frank Emerson. They can still find a gap to make a left out. The existing operating level of service at there, I think, is C, and we dropped it down to an F, the addition of our fourth leg of the intersection. So GDOT asks for 100% warrants for condition 1. We don't meet any of those in the existing condition. And we won't meet any of those in our build-out condition, nor do we meet those in the 5-year build-out condition, including growth rates. So if this conversation was with GDOT, the conversation would be over. A signal is not warranted. The local jurisdiction has an opportunity to look at what MUTCD puts in as 70% warrants. So it takes the threshold down to put in a signal much lower. When looking at 70% warrants, for warrant 1, condition A, in the build-out condition, we meet for 11 of the required 8 hours for a signal. So we would warrant a signal in the 70% warrants. And that warrant, again, is generated because there's a lot of truck traffic making a left turn out of Frank Emerson Boulevard. If there weren't, we wouldn't meet that threshold for warrants, for signal warrants. And so after analyzing this, what we feel like we have developed as a conclusion of the traffic report, this is a 4-leg intersection. There's a big portion of industrial authority land north of us, Tyson and Tractor Supply. There's Love's. There's the 4th leg of this intersection. And all of those contributing uses are getting us to this warrant threshold. The traffic volumes that we counted on site, put the tubes down and put the cameras up, were traffic volumes taken from 4 weeks ago. When the rest of the industrial authority land is developed, those warrants are going to become more strong. There'll be more reason to have a signal. But today, what we can say is a signal is not warranted based on the model today without the 4th leg of our intersection. When this site would be constructed, a signal in the 70% warrant would be warranted. So that's what our traffic study says.
Okay, understand.
Okay, great. Forgive me if any of that went back too far to the beginning. We just want to make sure it's clear on how we get there. Happy to talk in more detail if you want to get more in depth on that.
Okay, we've gone over by 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Did
Great.
anybody else have any questions for him? So the other side gets 15 minutes or 20 minutes, is it? They get equal amount of time, then you
Yes.
come back. And
Yep, thank you.
Was there anyone else who was here to speak in favor, out of curiosity? But
We're already over by 5.
yeah.
He did sign up though. Okay. Be brief though, sir.
I'm in favor of the truck stop. I don't think that piece of property is really of value for any other use. And my big thing is that Macon needs more truck stops for the safety of the truck drivers, because right now we're running out of parking spaces for trucks. I mean, Mayor Miller just towed away a lot of trailers that were parked on Harrison Road at the Eisenhower and Chambers Road exit there. And if you come back down 75 at the Jackson exit, there are trucks lined up on that entrance ramp and exit ramp because they have nowhere to park overnight. So I think that this truck stop will alleviate a lot of the problems that the truck drivers have as far as overnight parking and parking spaces so they can meet their rest times. And I think that this will go very far in adding to the safety of our truck drivers, especially since we have, that area is developed specifically to be serviced by truckers, as well as the industrial park out by the airport. So I think anything we can do to enhance the safety of our truck drivers is a good thing, and that's the reason I'm in favor of the new truck stop.
Thank you very much.
We used an extra minute and 50 seconds.
How much time was,
It was 16 minutes and 50 seconds.
we just need to have equal time for both sides.
How much time did?
16 and some change.
Okay.
Let me get a timer set.
Who's the first person?
Setting timer.
And you all have 16 minutes and a few seconds.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Malone, and I'm at 5478 Sardis Church Road, a couple doors down from where this proposed truck stop is. I heard a lot about safety of truckers from that last person that spoke, and I'd like to talk about the safety of the residents in the area. We've noticed a huge uptick in non-residential traffic as well as non-residential foot traffic. We've also seen a lot more camping in the woods that is around the Love's truck stop that's already there. And we have huge concerns that those people camping in the woods will be pushed out towards our properties. There's a huge increase in traffic since the Love's truck stop has been implemented, and we are starting to see the uptick from the QT as well. While I appreciate that the traffic study was done, it didn't really alleviate any of my concerns as far as safety goes. There have been 3 separate incidents so far that has caused damage to either side of the intersection on Sardis Church Road, and I mean either side of I-75. We are very opposed to having the truck stop in the area. Many of us are trying to raise families. I have 2 very young children, so this is a huge concern for me. I have many neighbors that have children and grandchildren, and others still that are retirees that are trying to enjoy some of the best years of their lives. So I urge you as a resident, just a few hundred feet down from this truck stop, to please deny this zoning request. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tom Stahl. I live at 5634 Janaroo Circle, Macon, Georgia 31216, approximately 550 feet away from this new proposed truck stop property. I would just state for the traffic and health concerns just mentioned, the number of people coming into the area of Emerson West impacts that greatly increased truck traffic that is going to be there. I mean, they said there's going to be an increase in traffic. These people are coming up into that. That's a problem. My first concern here is environmental concerns. With a truck stop like this, stormwater runoff of diesel fuels, gasoline fuels, oils, lubricants, considering we are that close to an aquatic system, the aquatic system actually impinges and lies on that property. I know they've got that abatement, or the area they're not going to develop yet, but that doesn't mean they can't come and do it later. In addition, the air quality of 100 and some odd trucks coming out of that area throughout the day. We can already smell the Love's truck stop from 2,500 feet away. This is 5 times closer, at least to me. That's a problem. The development will drive more animals from that parcel It's not up there anymore, but that parcel up into our neighborhood. We already have hogs, deer, coyotes, snakes being driven up into our neighborhoods. When they develop that area, they're taking 31 acres plus the noise down into what is effectively a small stream and lowland wetland, a swamp. Both of those drain down into Etchconey Creek, and Etchconey Creek spreads beyond our borders. So you'll be, in effect, putting these pollutants beyond our borders. And while you will be approving or not, what you're approving here cannot be disproved by people downstream. And that's a large problem. These displaced animals also carry diseases. Rabies. Think it fanciful, but swine flu. We're in a pandemic right now. And many of the novel viruses out there, SARS, COVID, likely transferred from animals to human populations. If you'd like to continue that, by all means approve this. Given these concerns, we would ask that an environmental impact statement be developed for this, considering how close it is to a wetland environment. We'd also like to have evaluation and abatement plans concerning the air quality. Next, sound and light impact. I've been in this area for 26 years, and the difference in the sound and light quality now compared to when I moved there and built my house to raise my children is immense. Sound and light are energy. The intensity of these energy forms don't dissipate the way you think. If I shine a light into your face from 10 feet away, you will see an intensity. But if I bring it to 5 feet, you will not feel twice the intensity. You will feel 4 times the intensity. And the reason for this is these sorts of energy forms obey what's known as an inverse square law. If I'm half as far away, I am 4 times exposed. I am 2,500 feet away from the Love's Plaza. I can hear it clearly. This place will be 550, 600 feet away. That's 4 or 5 times closer. That's not 4 or 5 times more intense. That is 16 to 25 times more intense. And this is not voodoo science. This is established physics principles. And for me, that's a real large problem.
We have 8:52 left.
How many more folks?
I've got 8 more people and 8 minutes and 47 seconds left.
Okay, so Mr. Stahl's used up
Yes.
half the time, so.
You do have other people who,
I understand. Can you give me 1 more minute?
all right.
Okay. Given these situations, both environmentally and noise and light related, the abatements for the noise and light, we would like to see a well-organized plan for abating the noise and light impacting our neighborhood. An effective abatement, not just a 3-foot wall over the edge of their property saying, okay, there we are. Additionally, well, I guess that's all. Thanks
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
James Workman, 5630 Jane Root Circle, next to Tom. Talking about health and safety and the children. Hogs came in our front yard, rooted it up, looked like somebody took AstroTurf and just rolled it up. That cost us several $1,000s to reapply sod. That we've seen hogs walking down the middle of the road, Jane Root Circle, which dead ends in a cul-de-sac at the, right next to the swamp. A gentleman who lives the very last house on the right, he was at work today, so he can't testify, but he told me that prior to Love's, he hadn't seen any real snakes. After Love's comes in, he's killed over 6 timber rattlers. Tom has killed 2 in his yard, and I've killed 1. We've got children. Do we really need to be pushing wildlife out of that swamp area? When we were on video conference last time, what I thought I heard him say was we may perhaps be able to put a buffer between us and the wetlands. I'm not, that might be, I'm not really secure in somebody saying we might. And then when somebody says, oh, we got 11 acres right here we're not using right now, but we may or possibly come back and ask for rezoning, how much further do you want to push these animals? Yes, it's nice when I can see deer going across the woods behind my house, but seeing we actually put up a fence, the hogs actually bust through the fence of hog wire, so we had to turn around and put an electric fence up and try and keep these down, so that was $1,000 right there. How many people have that much money to invest in trying to keep wildlife out that somebody else pushed into our yard? The diseases, what we talked about, or Tom did, I've got armadillos in my yard, which they're known to carry leprosy. Not good. I mean, if you kill one, you can get it out of your yard. We had one possum came out there and he was withering in the yard. He was dying of some kind of disease. What was I supposed to do? No, who sees a possum in the daytime in their yard? They're nocturnal animals, so he had to be sick. So there's different things that we don't think about. We say, oh man, look at the tax dollars coming in. But what are we going to do about the other stuff? What are we going to do about the price value of our homes and the safety of the children? Even the next street over is, what's his name? Robbie. We've had people from church that took pictures of snakes in their yards. And so it's just, that was from Love's, which is down and across, how much are we doing when we take those woods away? They're even adjacent to the wetlands. And so I agree with Tom. I'd like to see a wetland study and to find out what exactly is going on and can some of this stuff be stopped. Animals, I'd hate to see them put up a fence between them and turn around and put a fence between us just to keep the animals in a local area. I'm not sure that's the way we're supposed to treat wildlife. But herding them down the yard, 15, 20 hogs at a time. Female pigs are, we'll say, potent at 6 weeks, and they usually have 6 to 10 in a litter. So imagine how long it would take those 10, or we'll just say 6, and then 6 weeks later they make another 6. Exponentially, what numbers do we have? And a lot. And the guy across the street, his property is adjacent to Love's, across Emerson, and he kills at least 100 hogs a year destroying his crops. And so he's a farmer, and how much more do we want to create him problems? And if the more the area comes into him as far as tractor supply and others, if another one moves closer, is he going to be able to shoot the hogs out of his property? I don't know. So we'd like you to really consider the safety of the children and the safety of the wildlife. If you already go down the road, almost every week there's a dead deer on Sardis Church and numerous vultures and stuff. That's another issue. And last summer, I thought it was really amazing. We had a pair of vultures nesting in our backyard well, in the woods behind our house. It's in conservatorship, so nothing can happen there other than natural. And so that's where we see the deer and then, like I said, the vultures nesting. So they're not the prettiest, prettiest bird, but they're very functional. Thank you for your time.
Afternoon. Bill Howell, 1145 Alma Drive. I'm the County Commissioner for District 7 where this proposed truck stop's coming. First of all, I want to just take a minute and say, having served on a planning commission for 5 years myself, I understand the position you guys are in. I want you to know that I appreciate your service because it's sometimes it can be a thankless job. I have read the last hearing we had. I requested a traffic study, and I have read the new traffic study, and thank you, sir, for your explanation on it. I actually had to call Nigel Floyd and asked him to give me the short version of what it said. I appreciate what the traffic study shows, and since what I've heard, should this rezoning go through, did I understand right that there wouldn't be another hearing for a truck stop? Is that correct? So I would ask if, regardless of what happens, any development that goes on that property, let's please address the traffic signal before we do any final approval. I'm not suggesting that whoever buys that property should carry the full load of the traffic light, but we do need a traffic light at that intersection. And thank you guys for your time.
Workman? Casey Workman? Okay. Tommy Miller? Crystal Miller?
Yes, I am Crystal Miller. I'm just asking that you consider everything that has been discussed, but also consider the traffic. I go back to the traffic again, and I know they're talking about a light, and we're not sure about that at this particular time, but the traffic is really bad. And when you put a light there, where it's going to be located, that I understand, you're going to have the truck stops, they're going to be across from each other, and that short period of space between there and the interstate is not very much. So to me, it looks like the tractors are going to be crowded. I mean, because the light that's there by the interstate when you get off, and if you put a traffic light right there, right beside the Love's truck stop, and where the other truck stop's going to be across the street, then there's going to be we have a lot of trucks. I mean, I live out there, I've been out there a long time. I know development needs to start. I understand we can't stop, but at this point, I feel, and that's my opinion, I guess, whether it's worth, but that there is just too much traffic in that area to be able to put another truck stop across the street from where we already have one. And I just feel like that would be a mistake, and it would cause more problems. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Gina Courtney? Bob Courtney? I can't read them. Canneman?
I didn't sign up to speak.
Okay. Shane Stewart? Okay. So that concludes it. There was 1 minute and 21 seconds left. Okay, rebuttal? Or Mr. Sure, you can use it.
Thank you for your indulgence here. Couple of things I missed. One is for the storm water overflow that is going to come off of this. We see no plans for any sort of a sequestering, or abatement for water handling flowing off of this, what's effectively a 20-acre parking lot. I'd like to see something in writing. I'd also like to see something in writing concerning, as I said, the noise and light abatement proposals, and I would urge again an environmental impact statement for this property development. Additionally, the initial proposal as read on the P&Z website was for, I believe, a truck stop and 2 fast food restaurants. But they said they were not developing those. And in their application, they said this would be a single-phase project. If those are going to be developed later, that's not a single-phase project.
Yeah, that was it.
I don't know if that means anything to you, but it does to us, because that's going to be,
The buzzer went off.
okay. And one last thing, thank you for your time and service.
Rebuttal has 3 minutes.
Hey, David Stanecki. Heard a couple of great points. Wanted to address them. Accident data was one of the first points I heard, pardon me, traffic safety. We mentioned traffic signal warrants. There's several different kind of warrants. Warrant 7, as defined by MUTCD, is actually traffic safety. We go and request accident data from GDOT and the local police. We've got traffic accident data going back to 2014. What we found is that there are some accidents out there. The accident data did not trigger MUTCD warrant 7 as a need for a signal. To list it off, there's some, in 2017 there was 5 angle accidents and 7 total. In 2019 there was a fatality and 3 injuries. I'm not taking away the importance of all of these accidents. Just do want to address that crash data and accident data was addressed in the traffic report. And while very important, based on MUTCD guidelines, was not strong enough to warrant a signal on its own. That doesn't eliminate the signal warrant that we already talked about, but did want to address that. I heard sound, light, environmental impact. I think those are important as well. And someone else addressed whether or not there may be a buffer against the wetlands. We are offering, with 100% certainty, 150 feet of buffer against the adjacent parcel. So there will be a buffer against the property line. Georgia EPD has additional buffer requirements against the wetlands. We are several hundred feet from getting close to the wetlands at this point. We will not, the state's guidelines we are meeting all of the state's requirements for buffering against the wetlands at this point. Lighting, we have not done it yet. There will be a photometric design to illustrate lighting on the property. The lighting will be designed for a truck stop and truck safety. The lighting is designed such that it's cut off, aims down at the ground. It will likely be LED lighting with almost 100% certainty. We haven't designed it yet. The intent of those lighting plans is to show that there will be zero, as defined in the lighting study, light spread onto adjacent properties. Now, because I've lived both out in the country and in town, there's more light in town than there is out in the country. We will be bringing more light. But the photometric plan will show that there will be zero light spread on adjacent properties, and is certainly being so far away from the adjacent property lines. Stormwater, it is not shown on this plan. The grade of the property naturally flows from Sardis Church south There's about a 300-foot gap of additional land between our southern property line and the last developed truck parking spot. That will be our stormwater detention pond. We will design that according to all of the local Macon regulations for stormwater management, intend to provide water quality and channel protection, overbank flood protection in that stormwater management pond as staff would require us on every project. And then last, Commissioner Howell talked about the traffic signal. How we put that as a part of this zoning, I'm happy to discuss. We want a traffic signal, or said differently, we have no objection to a traffic signal. I think the concern that our developer feels is that we may be showing up at the wrong time. This is the straw that broke the camel's back on getting the traffic signal, and we're trying to decide if we own 100% of that cost on the traffic signal, or if we can own our share of the cost of the traffic signal. We are certainly willing to own our share of the cost of the traffic signal, and we can continue to discuss if timing means we own more than our share of the traffic signal. So I think those are my rebuttal points. Thank you.
I have a question. So when you said that you all are meeting the state requirements for buffering with the wetlands,
yes.
So I guess the state takes into account if a person were to do a construction that this buffer is what's needed to protect those wetlands and whatnot. Is that my thinking?
Yeah, well, the state says we can't mess with them at all. And we can't get closer to 25 feet to wetlands. We will not be closer to 25 feet. From a construction standpoint, there's the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination, so the NPDES requires that we're going to hold all of our sediments and silts on site with silt fence and stone and other erosion best management practices. So from a protection of the wetland standpoint, there are state guidelines that control all of those, and we will be required to comply with all of those state guidelines. There are also local guidelines as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion?
I have a couple of questions, one to you, Commissioner Scott, and other to Commissioner Vector. You asked a question about the zoning earlier, about maybe not zoning the whole parcel. What was your thinking in that regard?
My thinking would be to, it's just one of the things that I'm thinking, just rezone the 20 acres that they're planning on using and keeping the other 11 acres. Can you not hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. Is that better? Oh, he was just asking me what was my thought process when I asked him, why are they rezoning the whole 30 acres? And my thought process was, like you said, they're saying we don't have any plans to do anything now, but who knows? Well, if we only rezone those 20 acres that they are actually doing the development on, that would leave another 11 acres buffer, because we wouldn't be rezoning that. That would still be agriculture. And so I was just seeking clarification on that. That would give even a larger buffer area for that site.
And Commissioner Beck, because you asked a question and said something to the extent a PDC rather than the M1. I think you.
Oh, with the additional 11 acres as opposed to leaving it agriculture?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that would give the commission some future control over what could be there based on what she read in the regulation. If it's on the M1, it'll wide open almost to put anything on the rest of it. Am I not right?
Permitted use.
Permitted use, yeah.
I mean, the PDI would end up being more restrictive, right? They would only be able to develop a truck stop, and everything else would be a conditional use. It'd be even more restrictive than leaving the 11 acres ag, right?
And so add the question, my thinking, whatever we do, if we grant them permission to rezone, we need to do it in a manner to not encroach on the community any more than we have to. And I know he talked about 10 years from now, but we got to think about 10 years from now also. You know, this commission won't be here 10 years from now, but these folks will be. So I think whatever we do today, that we need to make sure that we are protecting that community to the extent that we can if we rezone it.
One thing I want to add is that even if the property is zoned agricultural, the 11 acres, there are still permitted uses and conditional uses in agricultural that they could.
That's my preference would be PDI, as Commissioner Bechtel suggested. So that would accept the site plan for the truck stop as proposed and disallow any further development without a conditional use permit on the entirety. I know, Jim, we've run into two previously. They don't like when we split zoning in the same parcel. So it would also correct that issue, right? We could rezone the entire contiguous parcel PDI
Right.
without permitting any further development.
Right. So if so if M1 is not appropriate, but PDI is, you can do the whole 30 acres PDI.
My preference, and the only way I could support this as well is the requirement that the traffic signalization be completed to traffic engineering satisfaction, whether that's a signal or a roundabout, whichever traffic engineering requires, but that appropriate signalization be completed on the intersection to traffic engineering specifications.
I agree with the Commissioner Rogers in that any approval, whether it be PDI or M1 on the plan, the traffic signal needs to be a condition of the approval. In that, in addition, I've talked to the leadership of the Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority, and they are in complete agreement with this. In fact, they have indicated that they will participate in the placement of the traffic signal because of his comments as related to the traffic that comes off Frank Amerson Boulevard and the remaining parcels that exist on Frank Amerson. If developed for industrial use, as the plan is, that will contribute to that traffic as it has to this point. So any approval needs to have a condition of that traffic signal.
And so I just want to be clear, the PDI means anything else that comes back, anything else that wants to be developed besides this particular parcel here will have to come back to us. And then we can say yay or nay based on, hey, this is too close to the adjoining properties.
For a planned development, industrial, then everything is a conditional use, and everything requires a public hearing. And you also get a little bit more oversight on building design, site design that you normally wouldn't get under a M1 or M2 classification. So PDI, or any planned development is the most, is very flexible, but it's also very protective. You have a lot more authority to offer protections to folks that may get impacted by the development.
And so I guess if we do the PDI, we could state like this is for this site plan. They couldn't come back and say, hey, well, it's PDI, I want to expand it further.
Right. In fact, you can't rezone it to PDI unless there's a plan, and you've got that. So you could approve, if you wanted to, PDI based on the truck stop plan, and then say, okay, but the remaining 11 acres, that's for future development, or not. I mean, you may require buffers, you may require, unbuilt areas, undisturbed areas. So, but to get a rezoning in place that gives you some protection, gives the neighborhood some protection, you can do that based on this plan, and then the subsequent plan for the truck stop is a conditional use as well. So just like the prior rezoning, if you wanted staff to work out all those details on a final site plan, you can do that. Or you can have them come back to you.
With everything.
With everything, yeah.
I think I am interested in seeing like a light plan. I know that's not in here. So,
Well, in addition, the stormwater is a big deal as relates to, the Macon Water Authority is now in charge of all stormwater in Bibb County, so they're going to have to write off on any plan, and that is submitted. So if it's in order, I will make a motion that 5250 Sardis Church Road would be rezoned from A, agricultural to planned development industrial, to allow truck stop, fuel station, convenience store, repair shop, and out parcels as under conditional use, but with an addendum that any approval subsequent to this must include a condition of a traffic signal at that intersection.
Second.
okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve at 5250 Sardis Church Road, a rezoning from agriculture to PDI, to allow a truck stop with fuel stations, convenience store, repair shop, and out parcels. This approval is conditioned based on a traffic signal being placed at the intersection. And I think we were saying we wanted to see the final site plan, correct?
I'm comfortable with staff looking at it, but I would like to have final approval.
So, and with us having final approval of the site plan, light plan, stormwater drainage, and all of those things.
Question to you, Jim. The environmental study that he mentioned when he was giving a presentation, would that ensure that the buffer is there because you can't disturb the wetland? Would that ensure that the buffer will remain there from now on?
Well, the wetlands, yes, but there was a lot of acreage that was outside of the wetlands. Because the total of that, I call it side property, was 11 acres, and probably, and I'm just guessing here, maybe half of it is actually wetland, or a third of it is actual wetlands, which is kind of no man's land. You can't really touch it.
Well, they designated 3.45 acres as the strip running from north to south.
Right, just a reserve thing.
But shouldn't that be a part of the motion then? Yeah.
Well, if we're approving this site plan right here, it already cuts out that 11
already
acres.
cut it, okay.
Right, yeah, that site plan
Even.
doesn't go over there.
Yeah.
That site plan is only 20 acres.
It's more like 13 acres that they cannot develop at all.
Good.
All in favor? All opposed? So carried.
For the record, you rezone the entire parcel to PDI based on this plan,
Which is only 20 acres.
which is a conceptual plan, and then you want to see back the final plan for everything else. Truck
Right.
stop, out parcels, and everything else.
Lighting, everything.
Lighting, okay,
Stormwater management.
okay.
So do we have a motion for the ratified items?
Can we do it in one motion, all of them, do they need to be set?
Yeah, you can just,
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ratification items, I think I've got them all listed here. Agenda item number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Approved.
Second? Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second that the aforementioned ratification items be approved. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion to adjourn?
Deferment don't need a motion.
Moved. Oh.
I've got some paperwork for you to sign, so
Okay.
don't rush out.
All right.
It'll take 2 minutes.
Meeting adjourned.
Who's second?
Or Tim. Well, nobody's going to fight over that one.